whole lot of stuff that I have from the shoot that we had for the film Pancham Unmixed. 8 to 10 different people in this collection who's talking about their experience. How Shankar Ehsaan Loy interprets his unusual mukhras and antaras and the combinations of them. His marriage not working in the first case.
Right.
You know? He had gone to the UK.
Yeah.
And he was very lonely. He didn't have a person. He got 2 surgeries done. The compositions that he actually created were far different and far better than even source. I think I'm depriving the Pancham fans and the music lovers. 80 plus screenings where I was present, where I have been present internationally and here. The main idea was to share the man and the music and the energizing aspect of that.
We have this documentary filmmaker Brahmanand who has done a phenomenal work on R D Burman sir. He has made a documentary called Pancham Unmixed, which has been appreciated both in India as well as abroad. And now the news is that he's coming up with Beyond Pancham Unmixed, that is 5 hours of conversations about R D Burman with some of the greats of music in India. Pleasure having you on Bollywood Hungama, Brahmanand.
Same here.
And tell me more about Beyond Pancham Unmixed. It's like 5 hours of conversations about R D Burman. Pancham Unmixed it's a documentary, almost 2 hours, which has been received very well. Now 5 hours which are not there in Pancham Unmixed. Am I right?
Absolutely. I mean, I've not had 2% or 5% max as overlap, because the deliberate intention was that whatever has been shared in the film, it should be something else here. And I think it sprang from this compelling urge to share a whole lot of stuff that I have from the shoot that we had for the film Pancham Unmixed. So the film got made. Film has certain limitations, I mean, of its structure and flow and repetition and things like that. And when I made a film, I obviously can't make a 5-hour film.
Right.
So many things that were absolutely gripping and fascinating and enlightening did get left out. Difficult decisions, but it's always the edit that determines the film. And I think that in some 80 plus screenings where I was present, where I have been present internationally and here, 90% of the time I've always been asked that, so when are we getting what you have not used? How are we seeing that? You must have lots of material. And I would say, yes, I do have. It's just that at that point of time, I was completely exhausted mentally with the 2000 plus hours of editing. But I never ruled out the fact that it needs to be shared. And I think some 8 months back, when I started looking at the rushes for some different reason, it suddenly struck me that I think I'm depriving the Pancham fans and the music lovers and the music students a whole lot of stuff which can do good to everyone.
Great.
And be a pleasure.
Right.
That's how it started, and after 6 months of some very rigorous work with a very active and intelligent team of people, finally I'm ready to share 5 hours.
I've seen Pancham Unmixed. It's a phenomenal work. There's no doubt about that. You've spoken to some of the greats like Javed Akhtar Saab, Shiv Kumar Sharma, Hari Prasad Chaurasia, Louis Banks, Leslie Louis, and a lot of musicians, Manori, and a lot of other musicians, Kancha, who worked with Burman Saab, and Asha Bhosle ji, of course. But you know, one thing that comes to me as a viewer is that it's more of a fan's tribute to R D Burman. Maybe the shortcomings of R D Burman in terms of the way he was inspired from many of the Western numbers, and even his personal life. His marriage to Rita Patel didn't work out at all. And maybe you have touched upon that, but maybe not gone to detail. And even Asha Bhosle ji in the final moments, all was not hunky-dory. So do we get to see more of that in the 5 hours of conversations?
I think that's again the idea that in the 2-hour thing, I didn't want to digress from the man and the music, essentially. Okay,
right.
So a lot of things which would be of great interest to you and me, I found that if I go into that, I must spend at least 5 minutes or 10 minutes on that, and that again makes the film very, very huge. And the main idea was to share the man and the music and the energizing aspect of that. But here what you will come across is a lot more personal stuff, and a lot many things which also try and explain his downfall, and a lot of it ironically has been interpreted by his close friends and associates in almost a psychological way, which means that they have not hesitated in sharing the fact that, well, this is how an artist is made, and it could be his own doing, and certain things work, that certain things don't work, but there are many things behind it, and including a lot of things that you mentioned. I mean, his marriage not working in the first case,
right.
you know, and
marriage to Rita Patel. You've touched upon how they met and how they went for the first date and whatever happened. But it was quite a turmoil. He lived in a hotel for 2 years, and
yeah, in fact, those are interesting things of a different kind, in the sense that here what we have in this collection of 5 hours is many of the closest people talking, who used to see him at that point of time, that how there were people who created rifts, okay, and who never tried to help them come together, because she was a different person. She came from a Gujarati background. She was very conscious of money, which Pancham was not at all, and she was a good influence in certain way. So, okay, in the sense that she was probably, from what I understand, speaking to them, was probably a good manager, someone that Pancham needed. But then there were close people, you know, who never benefited from that, and they tried and created a few rifts. Other than the fact that maybe
we get to know more about that in this.
You do, and you get to know a couple of people who led to his downfall, which were in a very casual way touched upon in the film in much more detail.
I think one was his close associate. I'm forgetting the name of the guy. But I think
Swapan,
Swapan,
yes, yeah. In fact, there are at least 8 to 10 different people in this collection who's talking about their experience of how they saw the problems coming, and how they saw Swapan doing things which Pancham should have stopped, and a mystery why he didn't. So it's interesting from those angles also. Okay, right. And like I said in the beginning, 5 hours may become too difficult to consider as a film, but if I keep it standalone, then there will be so many areas that if it's a DVD that comes out, one can just click onto the areas that one wants to know. So
you're having various sections for that,
right? So if someone wants to know how Shankar Ehsaan Loy interprets his unusual mukhras and antaras and the combinations of them,
right,
one can go there. If one wants to know why it didn't seem very likely that he could have died the way he died, in terms of 5 rupees in a bank locker, you could go into that. Someone who may want to discover what he was like a child or younger days, one could go to that. Someone who may want to know a little more, like you said, about Rita Patel and other things, you know, why.
And even the surgery that he went for, I think in US he had gone for open heart surgery, I believe.
He had gone to the UK.
Yeah.
And he was very lonely. He didn't have a person.
UK or USA?
UK.
And he got his open heart surgery done over there.
He went there. He got 2 surgeries done. I think, or 1 surgery and 2 attacks was what happened. And he didn't have a single person with him. So there are many things of loneliness and ironical aspects that do come out. Of course, I would say that, say 25-30% of the entire material may give insights into these, and 70-75% still would give insight into the music and the
okay. And now coming to the music, it was said that he was inspired by a lot of Western influences, because when he was at his peak in 70s and early 80s till around 85, R D Burman was one of the very few music composers who was having many films at the same time. He was doing like 10 and 12 films at the same time, which is a lot. And there have been instances when he has himself admitted that he has taken certain inspirations and the entire thing from various Western influences, and Western and other even Oriental influences as well. So are you delving on that as well?
I am delving a reasonable bit on that, and let me say a few things about this, in the sense that he was doing, in the 70s, he was doing 15, 16, 17 films a year.
At a time, yeah.
There were a few years when he touched 20 and 21. When I was mentioning this to Shankar Ehsaan Loy while doing the interview, they said that, my God, this is mind-blowing, in the sense that we do 4, 5, 6 films a year and we think that we are very, very packed. And can you imagine 20, 21 films, you know,
Right.
and there were years like that. And 15, 16 was very common.
Right.
Very, very common. And the lifts that he did, you know, there was something like 200 lifts out of the 2000 plus compositions that he did. Okay. And I have some very interesting people talk and share about this, including someone like Usha Uthup, who's actually demonstrated the originals and sung, and how the change happened, how the lifts happened, how the inspiration happened, how the adaptation happened.
Okay.
And it throws many you know, aspects of this lift thing very, very clear. And some of them are straight lifts, and most of them are where he took some phrase and that inspired him for something else. And how, you know, incidents actually, the compositions that he actually created were far different and far better than even source for you and me.
That can be, that
Yes.
is surely
Yeah.
debatable. Like I personally feel जब कोई बात बिगड़ जाए from Jurm, I think somehow it sounds better to me than 500 miles.
Sure.
I don't know, because even
or
the music
O Hansani,
arrangements.
for example, O Hansani, or even Chura Liya Hai.
Yeah.
Chura Liya Hai to me sounds magical here, and when I himself apparently I have not kept it in the film, but he had mentioned it to Bhupinder. It's a known story that tell me, you know, from where have I taken Chura Liya Hai Tumne? So Bhupinder said that. So he gave Bhupinder, he bet for 100 rupees and told Bhupinder that give you 1 week's time. So Bhupinder tried to, you know, go through all his collection of Western music and things like that. So he said, okay, I give up, I can't. And he said that, अबे साले तू ही तो ले गया था मुझे वो पिक्चर दिखाने. You know, if it's Tuesday, it must be Rio. Okay. But you listen to that song, and so it's Pancham Da himself acknowledging, saying that I took it from. But if you listen to the song and you listen to Chura Liya, I personally feel that maybe 10% of that element is there in Chura Liya. But he never hesitated from accepting something like this. Of course, he would sometimes, there was no YouTube in those days, and there was no itwofs.com in those days. So, you know, many people got away with many things. But sometimes he took compositions, and those were, say, like Mehbooba. It's pretty much straight adaptation. But then the kind of sounds that he created with the santoor, with you know, the Iranian santoor, making it, adding his yodeling, adding his this, I think that in my understanding is, without being biased, that in the most obvious lifts and adaptations that he did, even those probably never had more than 30% of the actual.